Imagine a world where oil, that thick, black, subterranean liquid, never became the lifeblood of our civilization. A world where the internal combustion engine remained a curious prototype, never dominating our landscapes and economies. What would that world look like? How would our societies, our technologies, our very lives be different? This is not a prediction, but a thought experiment. A journey into an alternate history, exploring the ripple effects of a single, monumental absence. Without the readily available energy of oil, the 20th century would have unfolded along a vastly different trajectory. Coal would have remained king, but its limitations would have spurred innovation in other directions. Electricity, already a rising force, would have become even more crucial. Early adoption of electric vehicles, powered by increasingly sophisticated battery technology, might have been the norm. Renewable energy sources, like solar and wind, would have received significantly more investment and attention from the outset. Necessity, after all, is the mother of invention. The absence of cheap oil would have fundamentally reshaped our transportation systems. Personal automobiles, as we know them, would likely be a rarity, reserved for the wealthy or specialized purposes. Instead, public transportation would be far more advanced and widespread. High-speed rail networks could crisscross continents, connecting cities and regions with unprecedented efficiency. Air travel, while still possible, would be a luxury, powered by biofuels or perhaps even hydrogen. The age of mass air travel might never have dawned. Our cities would look drastically different. Without the dominance of the automobile, urban sprawl would be less pronounced. Cities would be denser, more walkable, and more bike-friendly. Public spaces would be prioritized over parking lots and highways. The air would be cleaner, the noise levels lower, and the overall quality of life potentially higher. Imagine vibrant, pedestrian-centered communities where people interact more frequently and rely less on individual vehicles. The geopolitical landscape would be unrecognizable. The Middle East, devoid of its vast oil reserves, would likely have followed a different path, perhaps remaining a collection of smaller, less influential nations. Countries with abundant renewable resources, like Iceland, or nations with vast hydroelectric potential, might have risen to global prominence. The balance of power would have shifted dramatically, with nations competing for access to resources like lithium, cobalt, and other materials essential for renewable energy technologies. The petrochemical industry, a cornerstone of modern manufacturing, would be virtually non-existent. Plastics, synthetic fabrics, and countless other oil-derived products would be scarce and expensive. Innovation in bio-based materials would be accelerated. We might rely more on natural fibers like hemp and flax, and on biodegradable polymers derived from plants. Recycling and resource management would be paramount, driven by both economic necessity and environmental consciousness. Modern agriculture, heavily reliant on oil-based fertilizers and pesticides, would be unsustainable. Organic farming practices would be more widespread, and local food systems would be prioritized. Food production might be more labor-intensive, but also more resilient and environmentally friendly. The emphasis would be on sustainability and biodiversity, rather than maximizing yields at all costs. The global food trade would likely be less extensive, with regions relying more on their own agricultural capacity. While some technologies might lag behind, others would leap forward. The development of advanced battery technology, solar energy, and other renewable energy sources would be decades ahead of where they are today. Materials science would focus on creating sustainable and biodegradable alternatives to petrochemical products. The digital revolution might have unfolded differently, with a greater emphasis on energy efficiency and sustainable computing. A world without oil might foster a different set of societal values. We might be more mindful of our consumption habits, more appreciative of natural resources, and more connected to our local communities. Sustainability and environmental stewardship would be deeply ingrained in our culture. The pursuit of efficiency and convenience might be tempered by a greater awareness of the environmental and social costs. This alternate history is not without its challenges. The transition to a non-oil-based economy would have been difficult and disruptive. New resource dependencies might emerge, creating new geopolitical tensions. The pace of technological progress in some areas might be slower, and certain conveniences we take for granted might be unavailable. Ultimately, a world without oil would be a world of trade-offs, We might sacrifice some of the speed and convenience of modern life, but we would gain a more sustainable and equitable future. It's a world where innovation is driven by necessity, where resources are valued, and where the environment is prioritized. It's a world that reminds us that the choices we make today shape the future we inherit. And perhaps it's a world that can inspire us to build a more sustainable future, even in our own oil-dependent reality.